No co se nám děje? My jsme nikdy ztratili.
Life is unpredictable. One moment, you're living an ordinary life, and the next, an accident changes everything. You wake up as someone entirely different, with abilities you never had before. This was the fate of people like Ben McMahon, who woke up speaking fluent Mandarin,
大家都在拍 vlog， 所以现在样。
and Daniel Tammet, who developed extraordinary mathematical skills.
Kingdom, shoemaker, surrounded.
Join us in this video as we explore the fascinating stories of 20 individuals who developed amazing abilities after an accident.
How is that?
Number 20. Scott Melee. A few years back, Scott Melee's life took a dramatic turn after a terrible car accident. Another vehicle crashed into him at 70 miles per hour, leaving Scott with injuries that could have easily ended his story right then. But instead of seeing it as the end, Scott now calls that day his new beginning. The accident left him with a serious brain injury, and life wasn't easy afterward. Anxiety and depression hit him hard. He often felt like he wasn't living his own life, as if he was stuck in someone else's body. It was a dark and confusing time. Then, one ordinary day, something extraordinary happened. While taking his kids to a craft store, Scott felt an unexpected pull to try painting. Up until that moment, art had never been a part of his life. He had no experience or interest in it. But as soon as he picked up a brush, something clicked. It was like a switch had been turned on, and he realized he was naturally gifted. Doctors later told him he had a rare condition called atypical acquired savant syndrome. This happens when a brain injury unlocks incredible abilities a person didn't have before. For Scott, it was as if life had given him a fresh start at 38 years old. Today, Scott is a successful artist in Wilmington. Painting has become his passion, giving him a new sense of purpose and joy. While one of his works shows a girl trapped underwater, Scott no longer feels stuck. He has found freedom and a reason to love life again. But what if the very thing meant to break you became the key to unlocking something extraordinary? Scott Melee's unexpected journey into art was just one astonishing example. For the next person, however, the aftermath of his accident rewrote the language of his life, quite literally. Number 19. Ben McMahon. When Ben McMahon was 22, his life took a shocking turn. After surviving a serious car accident, he spent over a week in a coma. When he finally woke up, something unbelievable happened. He could no longer speak English. Instead, every word that came out of his mouth was in Mandarin. The first thing Ben said was to a nurse. "Excuse me, I feel really sore here," he told her. But it wasn't in English. It was perfect Mandarin. Confused and unsure what was happening, he asked for a pen and paper. When he started writing, the words he put down read, "I love my mom. I love my dad. I will recover." His family was stunned. Their son, who had grown up speaking English, couldn't remember it anymore. Doctors were equally amazed. Ben had studied Mandarin during his school years in Melbourne, but he was far from fluent. So how did this happen? For a few days, Ben only spoke Mandarin. Slowly, his memory of English started to return. Still, the ability to speak Mandarin stayed with him, and it completely transformed his life. Since then, Ben has embraced this gift. He moved to Shanghai, where he studied e-commerce at a local university. His fluency also opened up unexpected opportunities, including hosting a Mandarin television show. What started as a life-threatening accident turned into a story that changed Ben's life forever. The next story reveals the startling possibilities of an act of violence as it transforms an ordinary mind into one capable of perceiving the universe's hidden patterns. Number 18. Jason Paget. Back in September 2002, Jason Paget's world flipped upside down in the most unexpected way. It all started on a Friday night at a party, where two strangers decided to jump him out of nowhere. They came at him from behind, landing a hard punch to the back of his head. Jason hit the ground, unconscious. But they weren't done. They kept pounding on him, all for a jacket that wasn't even worth much. Once they got what they wanted, they took off, leaving Jason bruised and broken. That night, Jason was rushed to the hospital, After some quick treatment, he was sent home, but by morning, everything felt different. When he turned on the bathroom tap, what should have been a normal stream of water looked strange. He saw crisp, straight lines crisscrossing through the flow. Then he looked at his hand, and it was like he was watching it move in slow motion. Jason was freaked out, and who wouldn't be? As the days passed, Jason realized his brain wasn't working the way it used to, but not in a bad way. The attack had rewired him, unlocking something extraordinary. Suddenly, Jason could see geometric patterns everywhere. Shapes and lines appeared in places he'd never noticed before. He discovered he could draw fractals, those endlessly repeating designs found in nature and math, with stunning accuracy. Before this, Jason had no interest in math or science. He'd dropped out of community college and wasn't really going anywhere in life. But now he saw the world like a walking math equation. Sunlight bouncing off his car formed arcs that represented pi. Leaves on trees seemed to lay out Pythagoras' theorem right in front of him. What started as a violent and senseless attack ended up changing Jason's life in ways no one could have predicted. While Jason's brain injury unlocked a hidden genius, the next story shows a person's body bending the rules of anatomy in ways you have to see to believe. Number 17. Daniel Browning Smith. Daniel Browning Smith, widely known as the Rubber Boy, has redefined what it means to be flexible, turning his unique ability into something truly extraordinary. His journey began at just 4 years old when he accidentally discovered his gift. What started as a childhood curiosity turned into a lifelong passion, one that has left audiences all over the world speechless. Daniel's flexibility isn't ordinary, it's next level. Unlike most contortionists who have limitations, Daniel can twist and turn in ways that seem impossible. Picture this, bending backward until your head touches the seat of your pants. He can do that effortlessly. He can also dislocate both his arms and legs at will and rotate his torso 180 degrees, performing stunts that most people can't even imagine attempting. His nickname, the Rubber Boy, came from one of his most mind-blowing feats, squeezing himself into a box weighing just 18 pounds with dimensions of 13.5 inches by 16 inches by 19.5 inches. To put that in perspective, it's smaller than the average TV, but that's just one of many achievements. Daniel holds several Guinness World Records, including one for sliding his entire body through a tennis racket without strings by dislocating his shoulders. He's also known for performing unique gymnastics routines and handstands that are completely his own. Daniel's talents don't stop at contortion. He's an actor, a stuntman, a comedian, and even a sports entertainer. His astonishing range of motion comes from a rare condition called hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which gives him an almost superhuman level of flexibility. This condition, while rare, has allowed him to turn a natural anomaly into a career that captivates millions. Watching Daniel perform is like witnessing a living illusion. Whether he's squeezing into impossibly small spaces or performing stunts that challenge physics itself, Daniel's talents are nothing short of extraordinary. Moving on the other side of the world, a young boy claims a shocking encounter gave him powers, just like a scene from a superhero story. Number 16. Nikolai Kryagliachenko. Nikolai Kryagliachenko, a young boy from Russia, says he has developed magnetic abilities. It all began after he leaned against a broken lamppost and got shocked by electricity. The next day, something strange happened. Coins started sticking to his body. While eating breakfast, he accidentally dropped his spoon, and it stuck to his chest too. Since then, Nikolai says metal objects seem to cling to him like a magnet. Nikolai, who loves Marvel comics and the character Magneto, even jokes about becoming a superhero. But his powers aren't just about metal. He once noticed a glass of water moving toward him all on its own. This has made Nikolai a popular figure at school. His classmates are eager to see his magnetic tricks. However, not everyone believes in Nikolai's powers. Dr. Roy, a specialist in tiny living things, microbial biotechnology, says that electricity can't make a human body magnetic. According to Dr. Roy, it's impossible for Nikolai to really have these powers. He thinks maybe Nikolai has eaten something unusual, or there could be something stuck to his skin that people can't easily notice. Nikolai's story is definitely interesting, But Dr. Roy warns people not to try anything like this at home. The truth behind his magnetic ability might not be what it seems. Meanwhile, across the globe, another mind-bending tale unfolds. A man wakes from a coma fluent in a foreign language and unsure of his own identity. Number 15. Rory Curtis. Rory Curtis's story is truly one of a kind, mixing elements of brain injury, memory, and identity shifts. At just 22 years old, he was involved in a terrible van accident. He was left with serious injuries, including a broken elbow, a shattered hip, and damage to his brain. Doctors placed Rory in a coma for 1 week. When he finally woke up, the world around him felt unfamiliar. When Rory regained consciousness, he began speaking French fluently. This shocked everyone, as he had never been good at French before. His parents, both confused and worried, explained that while Rory had studied French in school, he had always struggled with it. Later, Rory's father did some digging and found that the Curtis family had roots in Normandy, France. This led some people to think that maybe Rory's brain had unlocked some deep, hidden family memories, allowing him to speak French without realizing how. However, this ability didn't last long. As Rory's English skills came back, his French started to fade. But the surprises didn't end there. Rory soon believed that he was only 10 years old. He kept asking his mother about an old family dog that had died many years ago. To make things even stranger, Rory became convinced that he was someone else, a man named Matthew. Rory couldn't explain why he felt this way, but strongly believed that Matthew was his real identity. One day, while looking in the mirror, he didn't recognize his own reflection. He expected to see Matthew's face, not his own. Rory Curtis's story shows how unpredictable the human mind can be. But the next story takes unpredictability to a whole new level. Not with the mind, but with the stomach. Number 14. Michel Lotito. Michel Lotito, famously known as Mr. Eat-All, had an ability that set him apart from the rest. While he wasn't a household name like celebrities or sports stars, his extraordinary skill of consuming things that most people would never even consider eating earned him a unique kind of fame. His bizarre journey began when he was just 9 years old. Unlike other kids, Lotito developed a taste for non-edible objects such as metal and glass. According to the story, this all started when a glass he was drinking from accidentally shattered. Instead of discarding the pieces, Lotito did something unbelievable. He began chewing on them. Soon, doctors and specialists took an interest in his strange eating habits. After running tests, they discovered that Lotito had a condition called pica, which causes a person to crave non-food items. However, what made Lotito truly remarkable was the fact that his body could handle these dangerous objects. His stomach lining and intestines were much thicker than normal, allowing him to safely consume sharp or harmful materials without suffering any injuries. To make the process easier on his body, he would cut larger metal objects into smaller chunks and lubricate his throat with mineral oil before swallowing them. Lotito's daily diet included about 2 pounds of metal. Some of the items he managed to eat were bicycles, television sets, beds, shopping carts, a computer, chandeliers, and even a coffin. But perhaps his most astonishing feat was when he took on the challenge of consuming an entire airplane. Over the course of 2 years, Lotito ate a Cessna 50 airplane, breaking it down piece by piece until he had consumed the whole thing. Sadly, Michael Lotito passed away at the age of 57. Despite his death, he left behind a truly one-of-a-kind legacy as the man who could eat the unimaginable. Lotito's unusual talent amazed the world, but another story, born from a near-fatal accident, would change the way we see motion forever. Number 13. Edward Muybridge. In the summer of 1860, Edward Muybridge found himself on a coach journey through northeastern Texas. What started as a routine trip quickly turned into a nightmare. The horses pulling the coach became spooked, bolting down a dangerous mountain road. The coach lost control, crashing into a tree and sending Muybridge flying through the air. He slammed his head against a boulder, leaving him unconscious and severely injured. It took 9 days before he regained consciousness in a hospital, his body battered and broken. The accident had left its mark. He now suffered from double vision, regular seizures, and had lost his senses of hearing, smell, and taste. But the most significant changes weren't physical. They were in his behavior. Before the crash, Muybridge was known as a cautious, friendly, and reliable man. But after the accident, everything changed. He became moody, unpredictable, and developed a strange attraction to risky and unusual activities. Once he was well enough to leave the hospital, he set sail for England, where his creative side truly blossomed. He turned to photography and quickly made a name for himself, gaining recognition as one of the greatest photographers of all time. But it wasn't just his photography skills that made him famous. An unexpected challenge from a friend set the stage for his most groundbreaking achievement. This friend, a wealthy railroad tycoon, had a theory about horses. He believed that when horses gallop, all four hooves leave the ground at once. Muybridge was skeptical, so he set out to prove his friend wrong. To test the theory, he designed a clever system with 12 cameras lined up along a horse track. Each camera was connected to a tripwire that would trigger as the horse ran past, capturing each moment. Afterward, Muybridge invented a way to display the pictures in rapid sequence, making it appear as though the horse was in motion. The result? Muybridge had unintentionally created the world's first moving picture. And to his surprise, his friend was right. Horses do indeed lift all four hooves off the ground for a brief moment while galloping. Through this experiment, Muybridge not only proved the theory, but also forever changed how we record and understand motion, paving the way for the future of film and photography. Moving down to Russia, a teenager claimed to possess a gift that defied logic, seeing through people. Number 12. Natasha Demkina. At 17 years old, Natasha Demkina, a young girl from Saransk, Russia, claimed to have an extraordinary gift: X-ray vision. She believed her ability allowed her to peer inside the human body and make medical diagnoses, working alongside doctors to identify health issues. Her story quickly spread across Russia, where she became widely known as the girl with X-ray eyes. This unusual talent captured the attention of the scientific community, sparking curiosity and skepticism in equal measure. Scientists and medical experts decided to investigate Natasha's abilities to determine whether her claims were genuine or just an illusion. Many suspected that she was using a method called cold reading, a technique often employed by psychics and fortune tellers. This involves making vague statements and then interpreting the responses to make it appear as if the predictions are accurate. To test her, a controlled experiment was set up to eliminate the possibility of cold reading. 6 volunteers, each with a different medical condition that could be clearly seen on an X-ray, took part in the test. Along with them was one healthy person who had no visible medical issues. Natasha was given detailed descriptions of the patient's conditions in both English and Russian, as well as anatomical illustrations to ensure accuracy. The test was designed to see if she could match the conditions to the right individuals based on her X-ray vision. Surprisingly, Natasha correctly matched only 4 of the medical conditions, falling short of the required 5 to pass the test. Despite not meeting the expectations, her abilities continued to fascinate the public. Natasha's story was told in a documentary called The Girl with X-Ray Eyes, which aired on the Discovery Channel in Europe and Asia, bringing her and her unusual claim to a wider audience. Her mysterious talent, though unproven, still left many questioning the boundaries of human abilities. Moving on from the girl with X-ray vision, the next story shows one whose brain injury turned him into Pablo Picasso. Number 11. Alonzo Clemens. When Alonzo Clemens was a young boy, people didn't think he was very smart. But even at a young age, he had a gift that set him apart. He could make amazing sculptures. At just 3 years old, Alonzo suffered a serious brain injury that left him with significant mental challenges. His IQ dropped to around 45, but instead of holding him back, the injury seemed to unlock something extraordinary in him. His mother noticed his talent early. Alonzo could shape clay with incredible detail and accuracy, even as a child. His sculptures came to life effortlessly, almost like magic. Still, his mother worried about his future. She wondered if people would accept him or his art because of his intellectual struggles. But Alonzo wasn't the type to let doubt stop him. Over time, he gained recognition as an artist. He became especially famous for his life-sized sculptures of horses. What amazed people the most was how quickly he worked. Alonso didn't need to spend hours studying his subjects. A brief glance at a picture was all it took for him to recreate it as a detailed three-dimensional sculpture, often in less than an hour. He could even sculpt perfectly in complete darkness. Today, Alonso's sculptures are highly valued. Some of his pieces have sold for as much as $45,000. His remarkable story was featured in the documentary Beautiful Minds, a voyage into the brain which explores the hidden potential of the human mind. Art seems to be the order of the day as this next story takes it to another level. Number 10. Ken Walters. Ken Walters has a story like no other. Back in 1986, life was simple for him. He worked as an engineer, living an ordinary life. But everything changed when a terrible accident turned his world upside down. At just 30 years old, a runaway forklift crushed him against a wall. The impact broke his spine in several places, leaving him paralyzed. The medical bills piled up, draining his savings. As if that wasn't hard enough, the stress from his situation triggered 2 strokes. The second one, in 2005, brought an unexpected surprise. While recovering in the hospital, Ken started doodling on a small notepad. It was a way to communicate, but something unusual happened. Ken, who had never shown any interest in art, found himself drawing constantly. Doctors explained that strokes sometimes rewire the brain, revealing hidden talents. They warned him, though, that these changes often don't last. But Ken was not like most people. When he returned home, his interest in art didn't fade. In fact, it grew stronger. He switched to digital tools and started creating artwork on his computer. What came next amazed everyone. Ken's digital art was stunning. It quickly gained attention from all kinds of people. Today, his work is displayed in office buildings, top art galleries, and even online virtual spaces. Ken's life took a turn no one could have predicted, but he turned it into something truly remarkable. Moving on from art, this next story shows one who developed impressive math skills after battling a life-threatening disease. Number 9. Daniel Tammet. Daniel Tammet's life is nothing short of amazing. When he was a toddler, he had severe epileptic seizures that changed how his brain worked forever. These early challenges didn't hold him back. Instead, they shaped him into one of the most unique people in the world. Daniel is an autistic savant, showing just how incredible the human brain can be. He has taught himself to speak 11 languages fluently, including Icelandic, a language he mastered in just 7 days. His talent with numbers is just as impressive. Daniel can solve tough math problems in his head and has memorized the number pi to 22,514th digits. But what truly sets him apart is how he experiences numbers. Daniel has a rare condition called synesthesia. This means numbers are not just symbols to him, they come to life. For Daniel, every number up to 10,000 has its own color, shape, texture, and even movement. For instance, he sees 117 as a handsome shape, while the number 9 feels big and intimidating. When Daniel multiplies numbers, he doesn't calculate like most people. Instead, he sees patterns form in his mind, and these patterns give him the answer instantly. This allows him to solve math problems quickly and effortlessly. To Daniel, numbers are not just ideas, they are real, vivid experiences that make his world extraordinary. As we continue, the next story reveals the many challenges and discoveries that come with recovering from a coma. Number 8. Tommy McHugh. Tommy McHugh's life changed in a way no one could have predicted. It all began when 2 blood vessels in his brain burst, leaving him in a coma. For a week, his life hung in the balance. When he finally woke up, he wasn't the same person. Something inside him had shifted, and suddenly he had an unstoppable urge to create art. Tommy started writing poetry, but that was just the beginning. Back at home, his creativity exploded. He filled his days painting, sculpting, and carving. Nothing escaped his brush. He painted walls, ceilings, floors, and anything else he could find. He described his art as a reflection of what he felt inside his brain during the injury. Before this life-changing event, Tommy worked as a handyman, doing manual labor to get by. Art was never part of his life. In fact, his past was far from inspiring. As a young man, Tommy spent years in and out of trouble, fighting in the streets and ending up in young offender institutions. He lived recklessly, not caring much about himself or his future. After the accident, Tommy became a different person entirely. His friends were shocked by the transformation. The tough guy they knew was now speaking in rhymes, loving kittens, and searching for life's deeper meaning. Neuroscientists were just as amazed. They began studying Tommy to understand how his injury unlocked such a powerful creative drive. While we've witnessed some incredible abilities so far, this next one is truly astonishing. Here's a glimpse. Can you imagine hearing sounds and seeing colors at the same time? Number 7. Lee Erseg. Lee Erseg's life flipped upside down in a single moment. While working on her family's farm in rural Colorado, she fell down a 40-foot ravine, hitting her head multiple times on the way down. The accident left her with permanent spinal cord damage and severe brain trauma. When she woke up, everything she once knew was gone. Lee couldn't remember her name, her family, or her friends. She had no memory of major events, like Barack Obama being elected president just a year earlier. 41 years of memories had disappeared, leaving her with nothing but a blank slate. It was a devastating loss, but something unexpected came out of the tragedy. Lee began to show incredible new abilities. She suddenly had a natural talent for art, literature, dance, and even physics. She also developed synesthesia, a rare condition where she could see colors when hearing sounds and visualize physics equations as if they were floating around her. Her doctors diagnosed her with acquired savant syndrome, a condition so rare that only 32 people in the world are known to have it. Now, Lee lives in Laguna Beach, California, in an artist community where she spends her days painting. Her artwork is unique, with a style that reminds people of Picasso. However, her life is far from easy. Her memory is still a struggle, and every morning she has to work hard to piece together what happened the day before. Number 6. John Sarkin. John Sarkin's life took a dramatic turn when he suffered a massive stroke at 35 years old. Before that, he was a chiropractor living an ordinary life. But the stroke changed everything. It left him with a new personality and an overwhelming drive to create art. During his stroke, John underwent surgery, and his heart stopped not once but twice. Parts of his brain, especially the left side of his cerebellum, were starved of oxygen and blood. This part of the brain controls how we process movement and sensations, so the damage deeply affected how John saw the world. After the stroke, everything around him felt different, almost as if he was experiencing life for the very first time. He began seeing things in a way others couldn't, and he poured this fresh perspective into his art. His paintings are filled with overlapping images, capturing the way he perceives movement and the world around him. John's unique style quickly gained attention. His works have been featured in major publications like the New York Times and the New Yorker. Today, his art is displayed in private galleries around the world. Despite the challenges, John has turned his life's unexpected twist into a powerful and inspiring journey through creativity. Before we move on, it's time for today's subscriber's pick. Take a look at this image. It's been making waves on the internet lately. People are saying it shows a Russian fisherman who went through something unbelievable. The story goes like this. His ship sank during a huge storm, and he was the only one who made it out alive. The Coast Guard finally found him after 2 months. But here's the weird part. When they rescued him, he was covered in some strange black stuff. The fisherman claimed that this black substance kept him alive through it all. What do you think about this wild tale? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Number 5. Derek Amato. Derek Amato's life changed in an instant at the age of 39. While hanging out with friends, he decided to pull off a daring move, catch a football mid-air and land smoothly in a swimming pool. But the plan went horribly wrong. He slipped and hit his head hard on the concrete edge of the pool. The accident was brutal. Derek suffered a serious concussion, bled from his ears, and slipped into a semi-coma that lasted for days. When he woke up, his world was completely different. He struggled with memory loss, constant headaches, and partial hearing loss. It seemed like everything had taken a turn for the worse. Then, something remarkable happened. One day, while visiting a friend, Derek noticed a keyboard sitting in the room. He had never played the piano before, but something drew him to it. The moment his fingers touched the keys, a melody poured out effortlessly. The music was so beautiful, it moved his friend to tears. Derek couldn't explain how he was able to play, but it felt like second nature. From that day on, Derek's life was no longer defined by the accident. It was transformed by his newfound gift. He became a professional piano player, releasing both a single and an album, all without any formal training. Moving on, one might assume that being struck by electricity would lead to certain death. But this story reveals someone who not only survived, but also gained an extraordinary ability. Number 4. Slavisa Pajkic. Slavisa Pajkic, famously known as the Battery Man, has a talent that seems straight out of a superhero story. He can handle electricity in ways that defy belief. Back in 1983, he amazed the world by surviving 20,000 volts of electricity without any harm. It was a record-breaking moment, but his abilities didn't stop there. Fast forward to 2003, and Slavisa pulled off another jaw-dropping feat. He conducted enough electricity through his body to heat a cup of water to almost 206 degrees Fahrenheit. What makes his gift even more extraordinary is the control he has over it. He decides when to let electricity flow through him, when to insulate himself, and when to store energy for later use. One of his most shocking tricks is setting alcohol-soaked cloth on fire just by touching it. Experts have spent years trying to figure out how Slavisa does what he does. One idea is that he might have a rare condition that stops him from developing sweat or salivary glands, which could make his skin work like a natural insulator. This might explain why electricity doesn't hurt him, but even this theory hasn't been proven. Despite all the studies, Slavisa's abilities remain a puzzle. While scientists search for answers, he continues to amaze the world with powers that truly seem superhuman. Forgetfulness is a natural part of being human, but this next story proves that it isn't always so. Number 3. Orlando Serrell. When Orlando Serrell was just 10 years old, a baseball game changed his life forever. While playing with his friends, a ball struck the left side of his head. It didn't seem serious at the time, there was no blood, and the pain was mild, so Orlando brushed it off and kept playing. He didn't tell his parents or anyone else about it. But soon after, things began to feel different. Orlando started having recurring headaches that came out of nowhere. At first, this seemed like the only effect of the accident, but something unusual began to happen. Slowly, he realized he could remember everything that happened to him, starting from the day of the accident. And it wasn't just big moments, he could recall tiny details, like what he ate, what time he woke up, and even the weather for every single day. As time went on, Orlando discovered another strange ability. He could instantly figure out the day of the week for any date in history. If someone asked about May 4th, 1880, he could answer without hesitation. His newfound skills amazed everyone around him. Doctors later diagnosed him with acquired savant syndrome, a rare condition where a head injury or illness unlocks extraordinary talents. In Orlando's case, the blow to his head damaged the left side of his brain, the area responsible for recognizing objects and processing memories. The injury caused new neural connections to form, giving him these incredible abilities. From someone who could recall every detail to another who gained the ability to solve the tough maths question, the stories only get more fascinating. Number 2. Jim Corallo. Back in 1988, a 14-year-old boy named Jim Corallo was in a car crash. He survived, but sadly, his mom did not. Jim ended up in a coma that lasted 6 weeks. Doctors weren't sure if he'd ever wake up, but one day, out of nowhere, he opened his eyes. When Jim went back home, people noticed he wasn't the same. He seemed different, especially when it came to math. Before the accident, he was just an average kid. Afterward, he became a whiz. He started taking tough math tests without opening a book. He could even solve problems in advanced calculus, which most kids his age wouldn't even understand. In just 2 days, he managed to memorize the first 250 digits of pi. It was like math had become second nature to him. The only downside was that Jim sometimes struggled to remember things in the short term. Other than that, his transformation was nothing short of amazing. Number 1. Tony Sikoria. In 1994, Tony Sikoria was 42 years old when something happened that changed his life forever. He was near Albany, New York, standing by a payphone after making a call. Out of the blue, lightning struck just about a foot away from him. Tony remembers looking down and seeing his own body lying on the ground, surrounded by a bluish-white glow. His heart had stopped. Luckily, a nurse who happened to be nearby rushed over and brought him back to life. He had burns on his face and left foot where the lightning had entered and left his body. For weeks after, Tony felt tired and had trouble remembering things. Worried, he saw a neurologist and went through tests like an EEG and MRI, but nothing unusual showed up. Slowly, his energy came back and his memory improved. Life seemed normal again, at least for a little while. Then, out of nowhere, something strange happened. Tony became obsessed with piano music. He had never cared about music before, but now he felt like he had to play. He went out and bought a piano, even though he had never played one in his life. Within 3 months of being struck by lightning, Tony was spending all his time playing and writing music. It was as if melodies were just appearing in his head, ready to be played. His life had taken a completely unexpected turn, all because of that lightning bolt. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.